Hello everyone, welcome to another video. Today I'm going to talk about the differences between philosophy and metaphysics, because sometimes we hear these words and we kind of don't know the differences between them. It's kind of vague and confusing for us, the exact differences between metaphysics and philosophy. So in this short video, I'm going to do my best. Of course, I can't do full justice to this question, but I will point out the important differences between the two. The sources that I'm going to use to answer this question are two books. The first one is Metaphysics by Dr. Ananda Coomaraswamy. This is the selected papers published by Princeton University. I always show this book in all of my videos because I think it's very important. If you have this book, only this book in your library, I think it's enough, seriously. And the second book that I'm using is this one, Introduction to the Study of Hindu Doctrines by René Guénon, the French metaphysician. So these two books are the sources that I'm using for this video. Both are very, very important, very remarkable works. I highly recommend you to purchase them. Now, what are the differences between philosophy and metaphysics? The first difference is that metaphysics is based on vision, but philosophy is based on reasoning. Metaphysics deals with universal realities and principles. A metaphysician doesn't try to prove his or her arguments. In fact, metaphysics cannot be publicly proved. What a metaphysician does is that they reformulate a timeless truth and present it in a manner that is more intelligible and accessible to people who live in that era. If you look at, for example, the greatest metaphysicians of history, I believe that Plato was more of a metaphysician than a philosopher. Or if you look at what Plato said and what Meister Eckhart said or what Marsilio Ficino has said, all of them say the same thing in the last analysis. Of course, they have certain originalities to them, but the metaphysicians basically say the same truth, but in different dialects and languages. I was reading Rumi the other day and I was pretty much amazed by the fact that he said very similar things as Meister Eckhart, the Christian mystic, philosopher, metaphysician. So metaphysicians basically, they don't have this property of ideas. There is no property of ideas in metaphysics. In fact, Ananda Coomaraswamy, who was a peerless metaphysician, was proud of the fact that he did not say anything new in his writings. For example, in his letters, he says, if I could find it, he says that I regard the truth as a matter of certainty, not of opinion. I am never expressing an opinion or any personal view, but an orthodox one. So there is no property of ideas in metaphysics, unlike philosophy that is constantly changing, and there is this evolution, progress, ideas are being repudiated, changed, and developed and so forth, but there is no evolution and progress and discovery in metaphysics. And as we know, philosophy is very rationalistic in its nature. It's based on logic, reasoning, mental exercise. Everything is up in the mind. Philosophy has nothing to do with the heart. At least modern philosophy is like that. It doesn't have anything to do with intellectual intuition and things like that. But metaphysics is based on direct vision of universal realities in an immediate manner. So it has more to do with the heart rather than with the mind. Of course, logic is subordinated to metaphysics. It's not that metaphysics is illogical or anti-reasoning and things like that. It's not like that at all. But metaphysics is purely rigorous and intellectual and logical, but it, in a sense, uses the whole faculty of the human being, the faculty by which one conceives a metaphysical reality is not reasoning, but the intellect, which is of a supra-individual order. The second difference between metaphysics and philosophy is that metaphysics is not systematic. It is not similar to these philosophical schools of the modern world, we have this existentialism, stoicism, Epicureanism, or, for example, many other isms, process philosophy of Whitehead, Leibniz monadology, Descartes' dualism, Spinoza's monism, things like that. There is no systematization in metaphysics because metaphysics is consistent. There's no change in metaphysics. Metaphysics is stable, universal, and eternal. It is not something that undergoes change, and it is not a closed system, so to speak. It's so universal that you cannot limit it to a narrow system. And insofar as a system, a philosophical system, is basically the way a person views the world. For example, Leibniz's system, his monadology, is the way that he saw reality. Or René Descartes' dualism was the way that he conceived the world, and so forth. So a philosophical system is really the opinions of a certain individual or a person. It is not something that is universal, so to speak. And since metaphysics lies outside and beyond the individual order, it cannot by any means be systematized. The third difference is that metaphysics is purely for practical reasons, unlike philosophy, because sometimes we read the works of philosophy and we wonder, okay, so I've read this, what can I do with it, right? So we just read these works and they use fancy words and they're very complex and very great ideas, don't get me wrong, but at the end of the day, we just don't know what to do with them, as if though they don't have this pragmatic and practical aspect to them, which makes it a bit difficult to read and continue because we want to apply that philosophy to life. And so many, for example, existential philosophies and things like that, modern philosophy basically, is very theoretical and merely speculative, but metaphysics has a purely practical purpose, and it differs from philosophy in that sense. Metaphysics is not a search for truth because of truth, because truth is good, but rather it is a means to an end. So what metaphysics basically does is that it helps the individual to attain unity, to unify the fragmented consciousness, as Ananda Kumaraswamy said. It is to basically attain proximity to the absolute, to detach ourselves from the contingencies of the world, of all the sufferings and all the worldly chaff that exists in the world. What metaphysics does is that it provides a consolation. We get to know what death is, what evil is, what is real, what is illusory. And I think that the aim of metaphysics is nowhere best, at least one of the best places in which it is explained is in Kumaraswamy's words in his article on the pertinence of philosophy. The aim of metaphysics is the regeneration, reintegration, and rectification of the aberrant and fragmented individual consciousness. It conceives of man's last end as consisting in a realization by the individual of all the possibilities inherent in his own being. It is, in a sense, with metaphysical understanding, we get to actualize the potentialities of our being. We get to live a full life, because most people are not in possession of their higher faculties. The majority of us, we really function on the lower levels, that is, on the lower levels of the psyche. We cannot really go reach the intellect. Metaphysics helps you to attain that intellectual intuition. Such were the differences between metaphysics and philosophy. Of course, this is much more. We just decided to say very few points in a very humble manner. Now, thank you very much for watching. I hope that this video was helpful. Wish you the best. Thank you.